Hello, I'm Dr. Larry Carnes. Welcome to Books of the Month. We're so excited to have you with us, and we have a very special guest with us, Justin Boyd. Justin, how are you today?
Very well, thank you.
Do me a favor, look right there and introduce yourself to our viewing audience.
Hello, I'm Justin Boyd. I've got a lovely wife, Jennifer, and six beautiful children. We live in Forney, Texas, and I'm very happy to be here.
It's a pleasure and an honor to have you here. Now, you've written this fascinating book, and when I began to look at this book, I was saying, okay, that's interesting. A Turkey's Thanksgiving Story. Now, this is something. Tom has a problem. He just learned that he would be the guest of honor at this year's Thanksgiving dinner, which is not usually a bad thing unless you are a turkey. Talk to us about that. What inspired you to write this book?
Well, if you think about it, there's lots of holiday books. There's so many holiday books about Christmas and Halloween, but one holiday that just gets overlooked is Thanksgiving, and that's something that everybody can relate to, regardless of you know your religion, your nationality, your creed. It doesn't matter. Anybody that comes to this country can relate to Thanksgiving because everybody has something to be thankful for. But it's just the one holiday. We've got the Halloween decorations to go in all the stores. As soon as school starts in August, and then it's Halloween isn't even over yet, and the Christmas decorations go up. But
Yeah.
but everybody just kind of overlooks Thanksgiving. So
Wow.
that's one holiday I wanted to highlight. And I was a fourth grade teacher for about 10 years, and one of the assignments that we had to do was teach our students about point of view. And so one of the things I wanted to do is I wanted them to think about things from a different point of view. And a lot of times they can think of things from the point of view of their mom or their dad. And I said, but I want y'all to think about things in a whole different point of view. Think about the holiday of Thanksgiving. So they started thinking about it, and I said, okay, now think about it from the point of view of the turkey.
Because nobody really thinks about the turkey.
and and they said, well, I said he probably doesn't like Thanksgiving very much. I said, so if you were a turkey, what would you do? How would you feel about Thanksgiving? And they're like,
Yeah.
so how would you get around surviving Thanksgiving? So I had my students write their stories about Thanksgiving, and that's one thing that in Texas fourth grade does. Fourth grade is a year they focus on writing. And so I wanted my students to be able to do things from a different point of view and be creative. And they said, well, this is hard, Mr. Boyd. I said, okay, I tell you what, while you guys sit down and write your story, I will sit down and write one too.
Yeah.
And then in order to get my students to share, a lot of times trying to pull that information out of those kids is really difficult. So to get the kids to share, I said, and after about 10 of you guys have shared your story, I'll share the one I wrote. And it was just real short at first. It was just about 4 pages long, and just penned it in about an hour. And it was just a rough idea of the story. And but I read it to my students, and they loved it. And I took it home and I read it to my children, and they loved it. And then I put it away and forgot about it for about 10 years. Didn't even think about it.
Are you serious?
And
10 years.
and and 10, maybe even 12 years go by, and then my youngest daughter, she said, Daddy, remember that story you wrote? uh, what was it, the one about the turkey? I said, she goes, can you tell it to me again? So I was like, yeah,
Wow.
let me go find it. So I went, dug it out of a drawer, out of a filing cabinet, found it, and said, okay. And I read it to her. She goes, that's a really good story, Daddy. You should make that into a real story, a real book.
So the inspiration to turn it into a book came from your daughter. Your daughter says, Daddy, it needs to be a book. You were a teacher there with children, young children. You were interacting with them. You got them engaged. And then here's the birthing of the book.
Yeah. My daughter, she said it needed to be a book, and so I said okay. So I sat down and I made it from about a 4 page story into about a what this now is a 30 page story, but she said, well, you need to make it a real book, Daddy. I want it to be a book I can get at my library at school. And I
Wow.
said, okay, well, we'll look into it. So I contacted a few publishers and looked up online to see what do you do to make a book, and so I sent it into the first publisher I sent it into, Page Publishings, and they said, yeah, we love it. We'd like to see the full manuscript, and we'd like to see some illustrations. And I saw illustrations. I didn't think they were going to want illustrations. So I drew some pictures up and I showed them to my kids, and my daughter said, no, I don't like those, Daddy. I said, why not? She goes, those are too real. The first ones, the drawings
Ah,
were more realistic, like
yeah.
real barnyard animals. And she said, oh, those look too real. It's a kid's book. These are more cartoony. So I was like, well, what do you mean? And she went and got one of her favorite books, which was the pigeon series, A Pigeon Eats a Hot Dog, and she was little at the time, and I was like, okay, all right. And so we looked at that, and I was like, you mean drawings like this? And she said, yeah. I said, okay. So I made my drawings more cartoonish and funnier with, and she said, yeah, those look good.
So you actually did the drawings and the illustrations yourself,
Yes.
the writing, the drawings, getting input from your daughter, and it came to life. Share something in there. Share something out of that that you think just something that would give our viewing audience. Let's give them something to let them know they really need to go and get this book. It is fascinating as I looked at it. Just share something out of that very quickly.
Uh, Tom, when he gets to the farm, he knows nothing. He's like a newborn baby. He's totally open to whatever experiences show up. Uh, like most of us are whenever we go through life, before we have any negative things that paint us one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so he meets a friend, or who he thinks is going to be his best friend, Roy Rooster. And uh, there's two feuding factions on the farm. And with these two factions, you have the ducks versus the chickens. And the it's an egg farm, so the chickens are the workers of the farm, and the ducks are more the tourists. They come there and they swim and fly, and the farmer's wife likes to feed them, and so they show up seasonally as they migrate through, and they hang out at the farm, and then they leave.
Oh, so they are occasional visitors. They're not there all year.
No, they're seasonally.
Yeah.
And but the chickens are very jealous of the ducks because the ducks, they don't have to work. They're there on vacation, and when they come there, they swim and fly all day and play around all day, and the farmer's wife feeds them, and the chickens are out working. So the chicken, Roy Rooster, he decides to get Tom on their side. He says, if one of us that live here on the farm could do
Yeah.
the things that these ducks could do, maybe the ducks would stop bragging all the time and be a little more bearable for us. And he said, but none of us can do those things. We're chickens. We can't fly. We can't swim. There's nothing we can do. He said, but you can. You could do it. So he convinces Tom to try to fly.
That's a powerful thing. Now, because when I looked at the book, I see you laying out something that speaks volumes beyond the characters. I see it's very personal. It can be interpersonal as we navigate our journey in relationships in life. So, what are the points? What are some key nuggets that people can take away? Get this book for their children, use it as a teachable tool. What are some key nuggets in here, that life lessons, I like to call them, that people can learn from the book?
One is to if you see something that's not right, that you think is wrong, then you have to stand up for it. And there's a couple of characters in here that have to challenge their families, challenge the president, challenge what's going on, challenge the way things always have been on the farm to make change happen. And it starts with the next generation. So each generation has that responsibility you don't have to do what the generation before you did.
That's powerful.
You don't have to live the way that your parents did or your grandparents did. If you see something different or something wrong, it's your responsibility to stand up for it, stand up to it, and make a change happen.
Yes.
And in order to do that, it takes courage. And it's easy to stand up, when it's people you don't know, but when it's your own family,
My goodness.
or your own friends,
Yes.
and it's something the way you were raised, and you're like, hey, this isn't right. We shouldn't do this. I don't agree with it, and we're not only not going to take part in it, we're going to actually go the step beyond not taking part in something, and we're going to vocalize it, change it, and make that change happen.
So, Justin, you're talking about values. And because the values that our parents had may have been their values, and while we're in the home, we have to adhere to those values. But if they're not our values, then we should do something, stand up to make that adjustment or that transformation or that change.
Absolutely.
Courage you used.
Exactly.
That's powerful. So what would be some key things that young kids could grab to get that courage, to instill courage in their lives to make a difference?
Well, if they follow some of the things that the characters in the book do, and they will see just how easy it is to do those things, and it's not something that they have to be rude to anyone. They don't have to do things through violence or through any type of uh, any type of hard way. It's real simple. The things to do. It's who you speak to, who you befriend,
Mm.
the way you talk to people, the way you interact with other people. And just because somebody else says you shouldn't do something or you can't do something, doesn't mean that you have to be. You don't have to be in their face, and you don't have to yell at them or argue with them. You can just prove them wrong.
So you've said several things. You talked about expressing yourself, body language, tone fluctuation, and the way that we approach things. Those are some very, very valuable tools that a young person can learn. Because we're seeing so many things take place in the world today involving our children.
Absolutely.
And those things are so detrimental to what we want instilled in our children when it comes to values. But as I listen to you and I listen to the interaction that you had with your daughter, and so you have that relationship with your children where you're imparting and pouring these things into them. We've got about 2 minutes left. I want you to take about 60 seconds and look right there and tell our viewing audience, parents specifically, what they can do to engage with their children, pour those values in them that will help foster the type of world that you just talked about.
You need to love your children every day. When they're good, when they're bad, you got to remember they're yours. And they are the way they are because you made them that way. And whenever they make a mistake, you have to love them through the mistake. It's easy to get mad at them. It's easy to yell at them. It's easy to lose your temper. And everybody does that. But even after something happens, you have to go back to them. You have to talk to them. You need to tell them, hey, you may have had a bad choice. We may have had a bad minute, but we don't have to have a bad day. We're going to figure this out. And most importantly, I still love you, and I'm right here for you,
Wow.
and I'm always going to be.
That's powerful. That's powerful. Now, take 30 seconds. Tell our viewing audience how they can get in touch with you, be it website, email, information like that. Are you available for speaking and things of that nature? Let them know how they can do that.
Absolutely. Justin Boyd 1502 at gmail.com. Or you could also look our book up online. If you go to amazon.com. It's available Amazon, Barnes and Noble, pretty much anywhere books are sold. We'd love for you to get a copy of it, and hopefully your family can get as much enjoyment out of it as mine has. And I hope you enjoy reading it every Thanksgiving to your family.
That's great. That's great. I tell you, it's a great read. I would encourage each and every one, family, get together, get several copies of this book. Make it a family outing where you sit down and you discuss this book, A Turkey's Thanksgiving Story. Use it as a teachable moment with your children. I'm Dr. Larry Carnes. Thank you for being our guest. Remember to join us again right here next month for Books of the Month.